Hey everyone, it's Jess from Meyer Hatchery and welcome to another episode of Meyer Makes. Today we are going to be making a harvest apron for holding all your wonderful garden treats and farm fresh eggs. To get started, you're going to need a cutting mat, a ruler, and something for cutting your fabric. I really like to use a rotary cutter, but you can use good fabric scissors as well. You're also going to need two colors of fabric, two coordinating colors, and I'd say you need about 1.5 yards of each color. I've added in the caption below everything that we've cut out and all the sizing for you, but let's take a look at what I've cut out on my fabric here. So I chose a fun farm print for my apron and a coordinating dark green color. I've went ahead and I've cut my two big pieces. So these are the apron pocket, we're calling it. And I've cut two pieces to 26 inches by 40 inches. You're also going to need two waistband ties that are cut to 6 inches by 40 inches. A waistband that is 7 inches by 24 inches. A little loop piece that's 2 inches by 5 inches. And some thin ties for tying up our apron. And you're going to cut those to 2 inches by 28 inches. Be sure to give your fabric a good cleaning and an ironing before you start your project. Yes, I needed to re-iron my fabric. Now that we have everything all cut out, we're going to work on sewing up the tie portion of our apron. So for our loop, you're going to fold and press your fabric in half, and you want wrong sides together. Then you're going to fold the edges to the center and fold it back again. I find ironing this and adding some pins and clips is going to make it so easy for sewing. And you want to do a top stitch 1/4 inch from the edge on both of the long edges of your tie. For our thin ties, and that's for pulling our apron pocket closed, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to fold it in half, fold the sides to the center, give it a good clip. The only difference is before you do all of your folding, you're going to fold in a 1/2 inch edge on just one end of the thin ties. That's just going to give you a finished edge. This is the top part of our apron band. And all you're going to do is you're going to fold in a 1/2 inch on both ends and give it a good iron. Fold it in half, wrong sides together, so right sides are facing out, and just iron it and set it aside. We're not going to be doing any sewing with that just yet. Another thing that you're going to need to sew is you're going to need to sew your long ties to tie on your apron. For this, you're going to fold your fabric in half, wrong sides together, give it a good iron, and then you're going to stitch it. Now you're going to stitch along the top edge 1/4 inch. You're going to come down the short side and along the bottom as well. On the end, you have an option. You can either just kind of have a square edge to your tie, or if you wanted to have more of a decorative kind of triangle end, come in 3 inches from the end and mark one point at the top, and then draw a diagonal down to the corner, and you're going to stitch on that line instead of going all the way to the end. It's going to give it a nice decorative edge. Here's what our ties look like after they have all been sewn. On our ties that hold on our apron, I've gone ahead and turned those right side out, and I've given them a good iron. You can go ahead if you'd like and top stitch again about 1/4 inch all the way around all 3 sides. You're going to leave one side unstitched, the short side, and that's just going to give it a nice decorative finish to your ties. Now it's time to start the pouch portion of our apron. So I'm taking the two pieces that are 26 inch by 40 inches and I place them right sides together, and we're going to stitch a 1/2 inch seam all the way across the top of the fabric. Remember, if you're using a fabric that has directional, so if you have things that you want pointing in a certain direction, you want to kind of work with that. Lay your fabric down, fold it in half, make sure everything's pointing in the right direction, and then go ahead and stitch your seam across the top. After you have that all stitched, go ahead and fold your fabric in half so you can find the center of where you just stitched along the top there. And you want to make a little mark. You can use a fabric pen or just iron a little bit, just so you have a mark of where the center is. All right, with the center marked, take your iron and iron about 4 inches on either side of where you marked your center line. And we're going to put a rectangle right there in the middle. This is going to be where your ties are going to come out on your pouch of your apron. So what I did is I marked 1 inch from the center line going to the left and 1 inch going to the right, and I just drew a small rectangle. After you have that all drawn, you're going to carefully stitch all around that rectangle, and you're going to do a really tight zigzag stitch. You want this to be good and sturdy because you're going to be pulling your ties through this rectangle. And here's what our rectangle looks like all stitched. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take a seam ripper and you're just going to open up that seam in your rectangle there, and you have the perfect place for your ties to come through. So now we need to make the casing for our ties. So you're going to take your big rectangle, your pouch portion of your apron, and you want to fold it so the wrong sides are together and give it a good iron. And we're going to stitch along that edge that we just put that 1/2 inch seam on. And you're going to stitch a 1/4 inch in from the edge, and then you're going to stitch another line 1 inch from the edge. Make sure when you're stitching that 1/4 inch that you don't hit your rectangle that you just made. And after you've stitched both of those, you can go ahead and take your ties and push them through that casing that we just made. You're going to make one tie go to the left, one go to the right. You want the raw edge facing the raw edge of your pouch and the finished ends coming through that hole. There's many tools that you can use. I like to use a safety pin tied to the end of my string or my tie, and I just kind of work it through. Now we're going to make the finished edges of our pouch, and we're going to do a French seam. So you want to hold or take your rectangle and you're going to fold it so wrong sides are together, and you're going to stitch a 1/4 inch seam on both edges. Make sure you leave a 1/2 inch of raw edge facing or sticking out at the top of your apron. After you've stitched that a 1/4 inch on both of the shorter sides, trim off the extra fabric and turn it so the inside of your pouch is facing out. And this time you're going to stitch a 1/2 inch from the edge, and that's going to close in all those raw edges. You can use a chopstick to push out the edge of your apron there to make it nice and crisp. All right, we're almost done. We need to add our band up at the top. So you're going to add 2 basting stitches along the top of your apron, the raw edge there. You want to come down about a 1/4 inch and another one about a 1/2 inch. Really make that stitch nice and wide. Then you're going to use the tails on the end to gently pull your apron, and it's going to cinch it together, and you want to keep going until it is the size of your waistband top that we have here. After you've cinched the top of your apron, you're going to place the band and your apron together, wrong sides together, stitch across the top about a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Then what you're going to do is you're going to fold down the top of your waistband a 1/2 inch, and we're going to fold that down over everything. You're going to add your tie in the middle of your apron, and you're also going to add the ties on both ends. You're going to tuck it all inside there, pin and clip everything together. Then you're just going to stitch all the way around. So you're going to go along the top of your waistband, down the sides, along the part that touches the apron, and back up the side again. And your apron is all sewn. Here's what it looks like completed. It has a big, beautiful pouch here. We can pull those strings to cinch it together. Put your strings through that tie, and you can tie it up like so. There's so much space in here, so easy to sew. And look, even an egg carton fits in here. If you have any questions, be sure to let us know in the comments below. We are so happy to help.